Alrighty, hello there, folks. Here we are today talking again about the general elections, the results over there in the UK, and essentially go through, I think, just talk about the implications of the election. I think the potential rough roads ahead are significant here, hugely significant, and I'm going to show you why that is. I'm going to lay it out so that everybody can see it. Look, don't blame me for the numbers. Okay? That's all I'm saying. I am reporting something here. Don't blame me for the numbers. That's all I'm saying. Okay. All right. Because that's what it's going to talk about here. And you're going to see a shape to that political landscape that is troubling. I think more than just a little troubling in terms of UK unionists. But on the upshot, the parts of the UK that wanted Brexit are going to get it. It's happening. The Conservative Party, congratulations, over in Britain, won a majority of seats. They are going to have a majority government. They're going to be able to pass and do pretty much whatever they want. So congratulations to the Conservative government on that. However, there's the other side of it. And we're going to get to that. But first, we're going to go ahead and watch Boris Johnson's acceptance speech. Here we go.
That said Boris Johnson is duly
Boris
elected.
Johnson, Prime Minister, re-elected in Uxbridge.
Thank you,
Let's hear what he has to say.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all very much. And listen, I don't want to tempt fate, because clearly lots of results are still coming in, and we're still only dealing with projections. But at this stage, it does look as though this One Nation Conservative government has been given a powerful new mandate to get Brexit done. And not just to get Brexit done, but to unite this country and to take it forward and to focus on the priorities of the British people, and above all, on the NHS. And yes, we will recruit 50,000 more nurses and 6,000 more GPs, and we will build 40 new hospitals. And I'm proud to say that one of those across the country, and one of those hospitals will be right here in Uxbridge and South Ruislip. And I'm grateful once again to the people of Uxbridge and South Ruislip for returning me to serve you. It is an absolute privilege to do this job and to work for you. And I thank once again the police, the council, everybody who's worked so hard all night to count for us, the returning officers. I thank my fellow candidates in all their glory, Lord Buckethead, and others, Elmo and others. Forgive me if I don't identify them all. But above all, I want to thank the people of this country for turning out to vote in a December election that we didn't want to call, but which I think has turned out to be a historic election that gives us now, in this new government, the chance to respect the democratic will of the British people, to change this country for the better, and to unleash the potential of the entire people of this country. And that is what we will now do, and if we are lucky enough to be returned, as the exit polls seem to suggest, then that work will begin tomorrow. Thank you all very much. Or rather, I should say not tomorrow, today. Today. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Okay, so there we are. Congratulations to the Conservative Party over in the UK. They won. Congratulations. And they are going to be able to do what they want to do, which is get Brexit done. And I mean, hooray for them, if that's what they want. So, what I'm going to talk about here is what that is going to lead to. Because if you look at the way people voted around the UK, okay, it's interesting. What basically happened is Conservative picked up a bunch of seats from Labour. Labour just fell apart, literally, under Corbyn. And I think the reason why, personally, is because the people there in the UK for the most part, and it's not an overwhelming percentage, but for the most part, wanted to get Brexit done. And there was some, like I said, there was some disagreement. But at this point, after 3 years, I think what we got here was the people going, gosh darn it, get the damn thing done so we can move on to other things. I think that's what it is. I think it's a vote out of frustration, really, in many ways. That people are just frustrated. And they voted this way just so that it would finally get done and get out of the way and they wouldn't have to hear about it anymore. I mean, literally, I think that's almost what this vote comes down to. But it hurt Labour because people didn't feel Jeremy Corbyn was going to be able to resolve it. I think, honestly, when it comes down to it, most people didn't believe Jeremy Corbyn was going to be able to get Brexit done, or he was going to bring the second referendum, which for a lot of people just meant a lot more delay and all that kind of stuff, right? So that, I think, is what hurt Labour. And so the Conservatives picked up a lot of Labour seats. And that's how they ended up winning their majority. Now, having said that, that's how Boris Johnson got his majority, and that's how he's going to get Brexit done. But if you look at what happened in Scotland and in Northern Ireland, it's a little bit different. It's it's nothing like, what happened for Boris. Between him and the Labour Party there. Between the Conservatives and the Labour Party. It's nothing like that. In Scotland, the SNP picked up 14 seats. They now control 48 out of the total 59 seats in Scotland. The SNP does. That's the Scottish National Party. Those are nationalists. 48 out of 59. Okay? They booted out, I think, 7 Conservative MPs. Tory MPs. Okay, so now Scotland has loaded it up with SNP, Scottish nationalists. Okay, then we skip over to Northern Ireland, folks. The Unionist Party leader over in Ireland had lost his seat, just like Jo Swinson for the Liberal Democrats. She lost her seat, also. So over in Northern Ireland, the Unionist leader there lost his seat, and Northern Ireland now voted in a majority of nationalist MPs. Remember, folks, when I was showing you that chart the other night that showed that Scotland and Northern Ireland both voted that they wanted to remain in the EU? Okay? Do you get the feeling that everybody knew what was in the air this election? And so Northern Ireland and Scotland loaded up their, parliament, or they loaded up their seats with primarily nationalists. This, look at just the SNP getting 48 out of 59 seats. That's basically a mandate from the people that they don't like Boris Johnson in Scotland, and they don't want to leave the EU. That's what that says. That's the message that the Scottish people are sending by putting in that many SNP members into the seats in Parliament. It's interesting stuff. So, to show you what I'm talking about with Northern Ireland, here we go. A little clip for you.
Last night in Northern Ireland, their Westminster leader Nigel Dodds lost his seat. And as of today, Northern Ireland now has more nationalist MPs than unionist ones. So just what will this result mean for the United Kingdom?
I think this is a huge responsibility for this new government. I think probably their largest priority more than anything else is holding the United Kingdom together. The SNP have picked up a lot of seats. It's going to be very, very difficult for them now. And they're going to have to fall over backwards to really make sure that people in Northern Ireland, people of Scotland, people of Wales really feel part of this project.
Boris Johnson went into this election saying a vote for him was a vote to get Brexit done. He now has a mandate so large he can do just that, and in fact, whatever else he wishes.
So there you have it. I mean, the obviously you've heard there that Northern Ireland voted in nationalist MPs. They now have a majority of nationalist MPs, which is interesting. Then you heard the other, it went on to you hear the other gentleman talking about how it's now up to Westminster to find a way to, to keep Scotland and Ireland and Wales feeling like they're a part of the, system here. And I'll tell you what, the way that Ireland and specifically, and even more so, the way Scotland voted, I don't know about that. I mean, Scotland specifically voted out 7 Conservatives that held seats in Scotland. They voted them out. I think they have four Conservatives of the 11 seats that don't belong to the SNP. I believe 4 are Conservative. And there's some Labour and some Liberal Dems, and but so the thing is that the Scots voted out a great deal of Conservative MPs in favor of nationalist MPs. So that leads me to believe that they're not very keen on Boris Johnson. And that guy's right. Boris Johnson will have his work cut out for him. The Conservatives in Westminster are going to have their work cut out for them if they want to hold the Union together. If they want to do that. I'm not so sure that they do. I honestly get the feeling of watching the way that Westminster treats, Scotland and even Ireland, is that they care about the resources that they get, but they don't really care about the people very much. That's honestly the way that they come off. But, all right, so now I'm going to show you the leaders of the SNP here, the leaders of the Scottish National Party, and I'm going to let you hear what they have to say about this. So we're going to first hear from Nicola Sturgeon, and then we're going to hear from Ian Blackford.
In this very room, just over a month ago, I could not reasonably have hoped for a more emphatic victory in this election. Last night, the SNP won an incredible 80% of seats in Scotland, an overwhelming endorsement of our campaign, message and vision. It is clear, beyond any doubt, that the kind of future desired by the majority in Scotland is very different to that chosen by much of the rest of the UK. Scotland has rejected Boris Johnson and the Tories, and yet again we have said no to Brexit. During this campaign, I said repeatedly that all elections are important. Of course they are, but that this one really mattered. I said that the very future of Scotland was on the line. Last night was indeed a watershed moment. So today, as we reflect on the outcome, we should also look ahead. This morning, I want to address both the people of Scotland and the Prime Minister directly. To the people of Scotland, I want to say a simple but heartfelt thank you. Thank you for the overwhelming victory you gave the SNP last night. The SNP will never, ever take you for granted. We will continue to work every single day to earn your trust, however you voted last night, both in government at Holyrood and in opposition at Westminster. We will focus relentlessly on building a fairer and a more prosperous country for everyone who lives here. We will continue to promote the outward-looking internationalist values that are so firmly at the heart of the SNP's vision for Scotland. And we will do whatever we can to protect Scotland from what I fear will be a deeply damaging Tory government. That means we will stand firm in our defence of our National Health Service. We will resist to the very best of our ability the ultra-Brexit Tory ideology that threatens a race to the bottom on issues like environmental protections, food standards and workers' rights. And we will stand up for the rights of those from other European countries who have chosen to live here. And I want to briefly address them directly today too. I am very aware that for you this may be the most difficult day since the morning after the Brexit vote. So let me say this again, and from my heart. You are welcome here. We value your contribution, and I will fight with everything I have to protect your right to call Scotland your home. Now, of course, elections can be invigorating, but also bruising events. So let me congratulate all those candidates last night who won, but also commiserate with those who lost seats. Despite the hard-fought nature of this election campaign, I believe and I hope that we can, in Scotland, now agree on two fundamental points. Firstly, it is now clear beyond any doubt that the overwhelming majority of people in Scotland do want to remain in the European Union. That verdict was first delivered in the referendum in 2016. It was reinforced in the general election of 2017. It was strengthened in the European election earlier this year. And last night, it was emphatically confirmed. Westminster has ignored people in Scotland for more than 3 years. Last night, the people of Scotland said enough. It is time for Boris Johnson to start listening. I accept, regretfully, that he has a mandate for Brexit in England, but he has no mandate whatsoever to take Scotland out of the European Union. If he presses ahead, he will drive a coach and horses through the very idea that is supposed to underpin the UK, the idea that the Union is a partnership of equal nations. And that brings into very sharp relief the second fundamental principle that I believe we in Scotland can unite around, that Scotland's future must be in Scotland's hands. Now, I acknowledge that not absolutely everyone who voted SNP yesterday is ready to support independence. But the point of unity that I do believe exists is this one. Whether or not Scotland becomes an independent country must be a matter for the people who live here. And let me stress, for all of us who live here, no matter where we come from. It's not a decision for any Westminster Prime Minister, and certainly not for one who suffered a crushing defeat in Scotland last night. The Tories fought this campaign in Scotland on a single issue. They spoke, quite literally, about nothing else. They bombarded people in Scotland with the same relentless message day after day and night after night. They said that a vote for them was a vote to deny people in Scotland the right to decide our own future. They said it was a vote to reject an independence referendum. Well, yesterday, the people of Scotland decided instead to reject the Tories. The stunning election win last night for the SNP renews, reinforces and strengthens the mandate we have from previous elections to offer the people of Scotland a choice over their future. That mandate says that it is for the Scottish Parliament, not a Westminster Government, to decide whether and when there should be a new referendum on independence. So given the verdict of the people of Scotland last night, the Scottish Government will next week publish the detailed democratic case for a transfer of power to enable a referendum to be put beyond legal challenge. I have been clear that a referendum must be the responsibility of the Scottish Parliament. This is not about asking Boris Johnson or any other Westminster politician for permission. It is instead an assertion of the democratic right of the people of Scotland to determine our own future. Given what I fear a Tory government now has in store for Scotland, that right to choose our own future has never been more important or more urgent. So to the Prime Minister, let me be very clear. This is not simply a demand that I or the SNP are making. It is the right of the people of Scotland. And you, as the leader of a defeated party in Scotland, have no right to stand in the way. In an independent Scotland, we will always get the governments we vote for. We will have full control of the powers and the levers needed to build a truly fair and a more prosperous country. We can take our place as an equal partner with our closest friends in the rest of the UK and across Europe and the world. The people of Scotland have spoken. It is time now to decide our own future. Thank you very much indeed.
You know, this has been a stunning night for the Scottish National Party. We stood on a platform of protecting Scotland from Brexit, of making it very clear to the people in Roskilde and Lochaber and throughout Scotland that if you vote for the Scottish National Party, it is about our collective right to choose. It's about reaffirming the mandate that the SNP Scottish Government won in 2016. And we stood against a Conservative Party that said no to IndyRef. Well, let me tell Boris Johnson this morning, the Scottish National Party have won this election for Scotland. Boris Johnson had nothing to offer the people of Scotland and he's lost more than half his MPs. We will be back to work later today. But let me say this to Boris Johnson. There is a referendum bill going through the Scottish Parliament. We will be demanding that democracy takes place. We are simply not prepared to sit back and see Scotland taken out of the European Union against its will. We're not prepared to see the devastation to our communities and the loss of jobs, the loss of rights that we have as EU citizens. We will have our referendum, and I ask all people throughout Scotland to engage with us in a debate on the vision and the values that we have. This election has been about saving Scotland. We will save Scotland. We will have that referendum. Scotland will become an independent member of the European Union. Thank you.
Okay, so there's two leading members of the SNP. Obviously, Nicola Sturgeon, who is First Minister of Scotland, and Ian Blackford, who is a very, very vocal MP. I've seen him speaking in the House of Commons many times. You know, so you can see there that they have no love for Boris Johnson, or even the Tories, for that matter, the Conservative Party there in Britain, or in the UK. And so you can see they're going to be all about independence. That's what they want now, because and this is something you won't hear on BBC News. I'm finding they don't really talk about it, but the fact of the matter is that the Scots wanted to remain in the EU. Okay, that's the way they voted. Okay, it just didn't matter, because when it got counted together with the UK as a whole, the leaving the EU is what won, 52-48. However, in Scotland, they voted 64% to remain. So that's a huge problem. They don't want to be pulled out of the EU. That's what Boris and the Conservatives are going to do. And so this is going to create a conflict, a huge conflict. And honestly, I don't think that Boris is going to be able to mend fences here. But hey, if he's able to, then he's a better man than I thought he was. So we'll give him the opportunity. He's got plenty of support to do it. But we'll see what he ends up doing. It ought to be interesting. But you can see there that the leaders of the SNP very much want independence for Scotland, because they don't agree. Now, the other tricky thing here, folks, and there's another thing you really don't hear often much on the news channels, is that there's two things that can trigger the Indy referendum. Okay, one of them is the people getting up and just starting the conversation with their MPs and showing an interest in it. And two, the other one is a very significant change in the government, and that's exactly what Brexit's going to be in 1 month. A huge, significant change in the government. And those two things are one of those two things is what's required to trigger the referendum. So, you heard Nicola Sturgeon and Ian, they're going to be taking this to the courts. They're going to do everything, and they're ready for Scotland to leave. And I think they should probably wait a little bit. my personal opinion. Don't be so eager to jump on the Indie referendum train. Wait a year. Let your countrymen in Scotland get tired of, even further disgusted with the things that they're seeing over in Westminster. Then trigger your referendum. Make sure your people are 100% on board this time. Don't waste your referendum, because trust me, if you waste it, you're going to be listening again. You're going to be listening to the Westminster telling you it's a once-in-a-generation referendum. So I would advise slowing down, collecting, everything together, making sure you're all in order. Let the people, see, what the conservative government has in store. Let them feel the effects of being effectively ripped out of the EU. Let those things sit with the people for a minute, then trigger your referendum. Just little advice from Eric Jose over here in America. But anyway, okay. So, to further punctuate what I'm trying to say here, in terms of the way that generally Scotland just feels disrespected by Westminster, I'm going to play you a clip right now of a guy talking. He's clearly a conservative, or, he's backing the conservatives or whatever. But I want you to listen to this guy talking out of both sides of his face. Okay? He's talking about how Boris Johnson has a mandate now, because the electorate voted the way they did, and how the SNP doesn't, even though the electorate voted the way it did. So I'm gonna let you listen to this guy talking out of both sides of his face for a second, and then we'll come on back.
I want to ask you, as a matter of democracy, do you accept that if this result pans out as the exit poll suggests, that the First Minister has a mandate to pursue a second referendum?
Well, Bernard, I think the key point and the key analysis will be the percentage share of the vote, and that we don't have that right now. The SNP clearly, as a result of the first past the post system in Scotland and the UK, will have the most seats. There's no doubt about that, and they're on course to increase the number of seats. But the percentage share the SNP get in this election is going to be far below 50%. So this so-called...
So let me follow the logic of that. Does that mean if the Conservative share across the UK isn't over 50%, the Prime Minister has no mandate for Brexit?
Well, he will be the elected Prime Minister, and therefore he will have a mandate.
Where does that mandate come from?
It comes from the elected representatives or the electorate in the UK.
In the House of Commons?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, if the SNP get 55 out of 59 seats, as the exit poll predicts, you are telling me, despite the fact in terms of a percentage share of the seats from Scotland, this will be far higher than the Conservative representation in the House of Commons as a whole, the SNP have no mandate to pursue this?
You're working on the assumption that referendums are the normal course of business. They should only be used in exceptional circumstances.
I'm asking you how you get a mandate. How do you get a mandate?
Well, we get a mandate through the electorate.
Good.
Right.
Well, who do you think is voting SNP?
Okay, so there you are. That's the kind of attitude, where, you see that guy. Okay, let me just explain something here. The Conservatives got about 43 point something, 43.4, I think it is, or whatever, percent of the vote in the UK. Okay? In Scotland, SNP got like 45%. Okay, so it's even higher because they got 48 out of 59 seats, right? So technically, Scotland has got a higher percentage for a mandate than even the Conservatives did, and the Conservatives got a pretty good mandate. But the percentage that the SNP got, that Scotland got from voting SNP in, the SNP got itself a mandate essentially because they're at 45% from the electorate. So listening to that guy argue how the Conservatives have a mandate, but that Scotland doesn't after what happened is just mind-boggling. And it shows you just how these conservative, MPs are just not popular in Scotland. The people of Scotland believe that these people don't care about them. Because that's the way that they talk. That's the way that they act, and that's the way that a fair amount of the Scottish people seem to think about the Tory or the Conservative MPs. I mean, I loved what that guy said. He's like, so what triggers a mandate? And the guy goes, the electorate. And so the guy asks him the next very obvious question. Who do you think was voting for the SNP? So, look, Scotland has a gripe. They have a legitimate gripe. Westminster doesn't give a damn about them as people, it would seem. Only cares about the resources that Scotland brings to the table in the UK. That's the way it comes off. That's the way it seriously comes off. And I know it's not an easy decision, and I know that a lot of Scots are very much on the fence about the independence issue. A lot of people have an issue about creating a border between, and those are all valid issues, and I can understand why people are concerned, and I can understand why those issues have stood in the way in the past. But ultimately, I think Scotland made its will known yesterday that it's not on board with the Conservatives, and they just voted in their nationalists. And looks like Ireland followed suit. Northern Ireland followed suit and voted in a majority of nationalist MPs. This, to me, is writing on the wall. This, yes, Boris is going to get Brexit done. Happy for Boris. Happy for the Conservatives. Good for you. But getting Brexit done doesn't mean all your problems are going to go away, because I think, hopefully, I've shown here in this video that is not the case. Right? Okay. All right, that's it for this one, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it somewhat informative. Listening to this daft American talk about UK politics. I know Paul Capaldi's probably fit to be tied. He's about ready to fly over here and kick me in the head because I won't stop talking about this. But he'll have to get over it. I got a big pond separating us, and then even beyond that, a large landmass because I'm over on the West Coast. So he can rail on all he wants. Anyways, all right. So that's about it for today. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.